Hey folks, it's springtime. Dan the Man here with Ralston Acres. We've laid off our rows, we've planted, we've fertilized. Now what? Let's talk about that. Okay, folks, it's springtime. What do we do now? What do Christmas tree farmers, what do we find ourselves doing here in springtime? Well, let's see. We have already gotten in the late winter and early spring. We have gotten our plants in the ground. Okay, they're off in the rows that we want, the measurements that we want, and then we're like, okay, now what do we do? Well, there's fertilizing, and want to make sure that we put a little bit of something on the ground there around the tree, around the drip line of the tree, or across the field to where that the tree has some extra nutrients that sort of boost it a little bit, because it's a critical stage in these trees from the time they're planted. For the next year or so, they're getting their roots established, and that's important. You know, I had a guy, farmer, tell me one time, Christmas tree farmer said, you know, what's above the ground is what you see. What's below the ground is equally as important, because that's what gives the tree its ability to take in nourishment and to grow a healthy tree. So that's one thing we want to talk about. It's fertilizing. Now, you know, there's two schools of thought on it. And by the way, I will give this disclaimer. You know, if you ever hear a Christmas tree farmer come to you and say, "Well, I'm an expert in this field," you need to cut it off right there. There are no experts in Christmas tree farming. I can assure you, everybody has learned from mistakes, from other farmers, from research done at maybe one of the research institutions, universities. North Carolina State comes to mind. I think Oregon State does some. They're all over the country. But my point is, you know, what I'm telling you here is from my experience. Okay, I'm not an expert. So anyway, let me keep going on the fertilizer. You know, some farmers will decide, okay, I'm going to go the lesser amount, and I'm going to get maybe a pasture fertilized. My soil test says this, and by the way, that is very important, is to have your soil test done. You know, at least by this time of the year, if not before you plant. But soil tests can tell you what the nutrients are lacking in the ground, that the tree might need: nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. You know, then your magnesium, some of the other iron, some of the other elements there that the tree will use. But uh, they'll say, okay, I'm going to get pasture fertilized, maybe a 10-10-10 or something along that line. Very, I call it generic fertilizing. That'll work. That would work okay. The only thing that you got to remember about that is it's going to give its nutrients away into the ground over a, say, 6-week period, and you know, it's critical to the tree. You know, but that's not a problem. But that's where it will end. It's just like if you put fertilize on a pasture. You know, you're putting it on the pasture to bolster the pasture. Maybe you're going to cut hay that year, and you know, you put the fertilizer down, and then in a month or 5 weeks you cut hay, and then you let it grow again. Maybe you fertilize it again. In my experience is, you know, time is money. So I go the slow release route. The slow release basically is a little more expensive fertilizer. It releases nutrients into the ground on a slower basis, but it will last sometimes 8 or 9 months. And that is critical to the growing cycle of the tree. In other words, it's not going to quit growing in June or July. It needs nutrients on and on and on all year long. So I go the slow release route. That's me. That's what we do. It's a little more expensive. And here's another thing. You know, some folks say, well, okay, I take a bucket, I put my fertilizer in it, and I just go around the drip line of the tree. You know, where just the outline of the tree around the outside. Well, that's one way of doing it. You're going to put fertilizer right in that particular spot. That's where the tree needs it. One thing that I do, again, saving time, may not be saving as much money, but it is saving time, and it does, I think, sweeten the ground a little bit is I broadcast it. I broadcast it all over my field. I have, we saw that in one of the earlier videos of the equipment, the hurricane spreader. I hook it up to the back, I put fertilizer in it, and I go down the rows, and it puts fertilizer out into the trees. Now, why would you want to fertilize the interior of the row where there's no trees planted, but there's grass, and then you're going to end up mowing the grass? Well, believe it or not, the varieties of trees that we grow spread roots out. And we want to see that in these trees. They spread these roots out. So actually, even though it may not appear that there's any roots where I'm standing in the middle of the row right here, there may be some small roots that get out close to that. Plus, another thing is, I like the enhancement it gives to the field itself, because next year when I have my soil test, I may not plant exactly in the same spot. So, I may get a little ahead of the game in having nutrients present in an area that I'm going to plant this year, but maybe last year I didn't plant. I don't know. That's just me. That's just what I think. But I do think that it is a little more, a little easier on your time, as far, and a little easier on your not carrying a bucket and walking around. Which again, a lot of your small farmers, and even me when I started, I did the pouring the fertilizer in a bucket, go around the drip line of the tree, go around and do that, and it's fine. It works just fine. But I like the broadcasting. Soil test, I mentioned that a minute ago. Soil testing is very important. I always try to do my soil test in the early part of the year, like January, February. That sort of gives me an idea of what kind of fertilizer, how much fertilizer I'm going to need. Sort of gives me a reading of what the soil, what does the soil have in it? Does it already have nitrogen? Does it already have potassium? Does it already have phosphorus? Is there too much of it? And I can sort of blend my fertilizer, sort of custom make my fertilizer to adapt to what I'm going to put into the soil. If I got too much phosphorus in the soil, I might be a little lighter on the phosphorus that I buy as a fertilizer. If, of course, everything needs nitrogen to grow. But what about potassium? A lot of people don't potash is what we call too. Uh, do we need that? Well, that's important for the root structure. So soil testing is very, very important. If you don't do that every year, I suggest you do it. It's not that expensive, $8 or $10 per test. And like I said, you may have and test 5 or 6 different rows and areas or tracks. You might want to do that, but I do suggest that be part of your work regimen in the wintertime. So with that said, what about trimming? We do trimming. We're going to talk about some trimming equipment in a minute, but we trim these trees. Here's the thing about trimming. People say, well, how do you know what to trim? Well, I had a farmer tell me one time, just trim off everything that doesn't look like a Christmas tree. Easier said than done. When you're first starting, you want to go slow and you want to practice, practice, practice. And over time, you will get better at trimming these trees. I promise you, you'll get better. Now, when do we trim? What do we trim? Again, farmers have different opinions about this. They'll say, okay, I trim in the springtime, then I trim again in the fall. I trim in May and then again in September. I contend that sometimes you can over trim these trees. Remember, every time you trim a tree, you're opening up an area here, a cut, so to speak, in these branches that invites problems, invites disease, and invites fungus and all this other stuff. Well, we'll leave that to another video, but one of the things that I contend is I trim the ones maybe that that need trimming, and the ones that don't need trimming, I leave them alone until I get ready to sell them, and then I'll give them a light trimming. But invariably, everything we have, everything we grow, all the trees that we grow are going to get trimmed about once a year, at least once a year, and sometimes twice if they need it. So I'm finding customers like to have that natural look in their tree. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that video in a little bit. But what else do? We mow. Well, mowing is all the time. I mow because I want to keep the grass down. I want to keep the prospect of any kind of insects or fungus or anything um, to a minimum. And I mow about every 10 days. Sometimes it's 2 weeks. Okay, see, mowing, fertilizing, trimming. Well, does that leave time for anything else? Hold on, let's take a look. Well, we ask ourselves the question, what do we do besides trim and fertilize and plant? Well, sometimes when the weather gets bad, we won't have to go inside. We find our project. Our project this year is to improve upon our Santa photos. So what we've done is we've taken this building right here, which is a 16 by 20 building. You guys have been watching our videos. You know which building this is. And we have basically taken all of our storage inventory out of it. You know, I found out when we was moving the storage out that you had stuff that you're going to use, you had stuff that you might use, you just had stuff, and then you had junk. So the junk is out of here. The stuff, we made an evaluation as to whether we needed it or not, and if we didn't need it, it got out of here. The things that we might use or that we're all going to use, they have been stored at other parts of our farm. So we have taken the inside, and of course, we're just not going to move stuff out. There's got to be some redecorating going on. So we have started cutting in and repainting the walls on a different color so that they're going to match and look good with the hopefully the end result that we're going to have down the road. We're going to have Christmas trees. And of course, Santa himself is going to be here, and he's going to be taking pictures with a lot of people. The first Saturday we're open and the second Saturday we're open this year, 2024. Now, if you're watching this video in another year, all bets are off. So the timing is going to be off a little bit. But for 2024, that's what it's going to be. And I think it's going to be a great success. But until such time, the project has got to get legs. We've got to move stuff out. We've got to move stuff around. We've got to see what works, what doesn't, what color scheme we want. We've got to paint, just you name it. It's more than a one day or one afternoon project. So what do we do as Christmas tree farmers when we're not trimming or fertilizing or mowing or, well, sometimes we have a project, and this is what this would be. So grab you a paint roller and come on over. We'll try to get this thing knocked out here in the next day or two. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. It's been a little different than what the previous videos were. We wanted to sort of show you in these videos coming up and this one as well as to what we actually do during the year. And about every week or so, we're going to have new videos out that's going to show you what we're doing that week. Sometimes it's going to focus on mowing. Sometimes it's going to be on trimming. And yes, you'll get to see some trimming. If not in this video, in another one, but I believe you get to see it in this one. And the projects that we have for the rainy days that we have here at the farm. But for right now, I'm going to take the paintbrush and we're going to go to work. But don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you like the content of this message and you'd like to see more videos like it. Also, there is a thumbs up, thumbs down buttons. Hit the thumbs up button. Please do that. Don't hit the thumbs down. I just want to see the ones that really like this video or the content of this video. And don't forget to hit the subscribe. And also, please feel free to comment on any of the things that maybe we have said that you'd like to see us get a little deeper with, and also things that you'd like to see in upcoming videos. We'd be more than happy to try to get that done for you. But for now, I'm going to take this brush and try to go to work, and we will see you next time on Farming Around the Christmas Trees.